In the crowded streets of Rome, a young man walked with his head held high, though his purse was light and his future uncertain. His name was Gaius Julius Caesar. Born into an ancient but fading noble family, he did not inherit wealth. What he carried instead was ambition, burning endless. From his youth, Rome was divided, torn apart by rival generals and corrupt politicians, when the cruel dictator Sulla seized power. He ordered Caesar to abandon his wife, who belonged to a rival political house. But Caesar refused. He chose loyalty over safety. For this defiance, he was hunted, forced to flee Rome, moving from place to place, living in constant fear. But he survived. Even then, people whispered, "This man will not be broken." When Caesar returned to Rome, he rose in the Senate with a voice of fire. His speeches stirred the poor and silenced his rivals. He knew that to rise in Rome, one needed both power and the love of the people. He gave bread to the hungry, justice to the forgotten, and won allies with charm. Slowly, his name began to rise above the noise of the city. But words alone could not secure power. Caesar knew that in Rome, it was soldiers who decided who ruled. So he set out to prove himself on the battlefield. In Asia Minor, in Spain, and later in Gaul, he showed unmatched courage. His men adored him because he marched, ate, and bled beside them. To them, he was not only a commander, but a leader destined for greatness. And so, step by step, through danger, through charm, through brilliance, Caesar rose from hunted fugitive to the rising star of Rome. His dream was never mere survival. His dream was destiny. Years passed, and Caesar's victories in distant lands made his name thunder across Rome. He conquered Gaul, defeating fierce tribes, bringing riches and glory back to the Republic. His fame grew so immense that the Senate began to fear him. Pompey, once his ally, turned against him. Rome was divided. Would Caesar obey the Senate, or would he challenge its power? The moment of decision came in 49 BCE. Caesar stood at the edge of the river Rubicon, the border he was forbidden to cross with his army. To cross it meant war. To turn back meant surrender. He looked at his men, the soldiers who had followed him through snow, hunger, and battle. They looked back at him, waiting. Caesar raised his hand. His voice was calm but filled with fire.
"The die is cast."
With those words, he crossed the Rubicon. Rome itself trembled. The march began, not just of soldiers, but of destiny. Through boldness and brilliance, Caesar swept away his enemies. He marched on Rome, seized control, and defeated Pompey. He brought order where there was chaos, reform where there was corruption. He gave land to veterans, food to the poor, and laws to stabilize the Republic, to the people. He was not just a leader. He was a savior, but to others, especially the jealous senators. He was becoming too powerful. He wore the crown of victory, and whispers began. Was Caesar aiming to be a king? Rome had destroyed kings long ago. Would it now kneel before one? By 44 BCE, Caesar was the most powerful man in the world. He had been named dictator for life. Crowds cheered his name. His face appeared on coins. His statue stood among the gods. To many, he was Rome's shining star, but in the shadows, daggers were being sharpened. Some senators, men who once called him friend, now saw him as a threat to the Republic. They feared that Caesar's greatness would end their own power. They whispered in secret chambers, plotting, scheming. Among them was Brutus, a man Caesar trusted like a son. The day came, March 15th, the Ides of March. Caesar walked to the Senate, confident, unaware of the storm about to fall upon him. Inside, the conspirators gathered. They greeted him with smiles, but their hands hid blades. As Caesar took his seat, the attack began. One struck, then another. Steel flashed, robes tore, blood spilled. Caesar fought back at first, but the knives were too many. And then, he saw Brutus, the man he loved, the friend he trusted. Betrayal cut deeper than any sword. With pain in his eyes, Caesar whispered,
"Et tu, Brute? You too, Brutus?"
He fell, covering his face with his toga, and the great Julius Caesar, conqueror of Gaul, master of Rome, the man who had dared to cross the Rubicon, lay dead on the Senate floor. The city shook with grief and rage. Caesar's death was meant to save the Republic, but instead, it tore Rome apart. Civil war erupted, and soon his name would live forever, not as a tyrant, but as a legend, the man who dreamed too greatly, who loved too fiercely, and whose destiny was written in both glory and blood. Julius Caesar's story is not just about battles or power. It is about ambition, loyalty, betrayal, and the price of greatness. He rose from nothing, won the hearts of men, and changed the course of history. His life burned like a torch, bright, brilliant, and short, and even 2,000 years later, the world still speaks his name.